This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Compliance and Amendments Committee on Tuesday, January 11th at 4:08. Mr. Rustin, would you call the first item on the agenda, please?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would you call the roll?
Member Snyder?
Here.
Snyder present. Member Nee?
Here.
Nee present. Member Washburn?
Here.
Washburn present. Member Wolf? Wolf excused. Member Johnson? Johnson absent. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
All right. Mr. Rustin, would you call the first item on the agenda?
The first item is the approval of December 14, 2010 regular meeting minutes.
Member Nee?
Yes, I move to continue this item because the minutes were delivered only today. They are not, and they are not attached to the electronic agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any public comment on the amendment? Seeing none. Any discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Rustin, would you call the roll, please?
On the motion, Member Snyder?
Aye.
Snyder, aye. Member Nee?
Aye.
Nee, aye. Member Washburn?
Aye.
Washburn, aye. Madam Chair, we have 3 ayes.
Mr. Rustin, would you call the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is the Ethics Commission's proposed policy for handling sunshine-related complaints.
All right. I'm wondering, Member Snyder, would you like to open the discussion and maybe give us an overview of what you're recommending and sharing your reasoning for some of this?
Sure, yeah. I was hoping Alan was going to be here to discuss, but has anybody heard from him?
By Alan, you mean Mr. Grossman?
Indeed.
I have not heard from him, no.
No, okay. So broadly, what I did here was take Mr. Grossman's, hey, there she is, Mr. Grossman's suggestions, additions, edits, and make some of my own to his changes. So what you see here is kind of an amalgam of Mr. Grossman's additions and changes and my additions and changes, and that's changes to what the Ethics Commission had promulgated. My main goal was to streamline both the document and the process, and also to make it as public as possible. And to that end, I think the most important change was that I've suggested is to delete any provisions that called explicitly for confidentiality in the Ethics Commission's investigation of sunshine complaints, and just state simply that any investigation by the Ethics Commission of sunshine complaints shall comply with sunshine laws. To the extent that there's any secrecy necessary, that secrecy would be prohibited by sunshine laws, and therefore, to the extent that the Ethics Commission in their earlier draft or their early version of this wanted to explicitly provide for the lack of public airing of certain information, they just can't do that under, in my view, under the Sunshine Ordinance and under the California Public Records Act. And so my changes aim to eliminate that explicit confidentiality provision. I also, and this was taking up a suggestion of Bruce Wolf's, replaced executive director with commission universally. My thinking in doing that, and now I'm starting at the top of the list that I gave. I provided on page 4 of our packet a summary of the kind of the blow-by-blow changes that I made, or at least the main ones. So I'm at number 1 now, replace the executive director with commission. My reasoning there is that it's not the executive director exactly who is performing any of the tasks that are listed in this in these rules or regulations or proposed rules or regulations. It's the commission, and the commission, if it so chooses, can delegate any of these duties to the executive director. But I think Member Wolf's feeling was that by expressly placing any of the duties in the executive director's hands, these regulations, as they were drafted, give the executive director perhaps more authority and power than he should have. And so, agreeing with that, I replaced executive director with commission and let the commission delegate duties that they want to delegate to the executive director. Number 2 on the list deletes confidentiality provisions. I've already discussed that. Perhaps it'd be useful if I could point the committee to the specific section where I did that. Let me see if I can find it. There was one section in particular that was cause for concern. Well, as we move on through the discussion of this, I can maybe try to find the specific spot. I'll move through the list so that we can get to any discussion there might be. Number 3, adds commission hearings for all executive director report recommendations, not just for violations. What I was trying to accomplish here is to ensure that, to the extent the commission wants to, it has the chance to hear any of the executive director's reports or conclusions in front of the full commission, in other words, in front of a full public body, if it so chooses. There were a number of provisions in the way that these regulations were drafted which allow for the executive director's reports to just kind of happen without really expressly going before the commission. And this is a concern I think Mr. Grossman has expressed on a number of occasions. And I think I think what I'm describing in number 3, adding commission hearings for all executive director report recommendations, is something that Mr. Grossman had done in his edits. I think I may have just enhanced them or emphasized them. But in any event, the idea is to ensure that as much as possible, any actions that the executive director takes go before the commission as a whole, if the commission wants that to happen, so that there's as much public airing as possible of the executive director's actions and his investigations into sunshine complaints. Number 4 eliminates the hearing panel procedure, and this was the main thing that I was hoping that Mr. Grossman was going to be here so that I could ask him more about. There is a hearing panel procedure which Mr. Grossman added to the Ethics Commission's proposed regulations, which I didn't understand the basis for. It seemed to add a level of bureaucracy that in my view wasn't necessary, but it may be that Mr. Grossman had perfectly good reasons. I'm sure he did, and upon having those reasons explained to me, I might change my mind. But I just got rid of this hearing panel procedure because it just seemed to me to add more sort of an unnecessary layer of activity. And I think rather than having it before a hearing panel, we'll just have it go before the commission. If the commission so chooses to not hear it and they choose to delegate it to a panel, they can do that. But I don't see the advantage in expressly creating that hearing panel procedure out of whole cloth. Give me a moment to look at section 7, if I could. If anybody has any questions they want to ask or comments they want to make while I look at this, that would be fine with me.
Oh, Member Nee.
Yeah, just a quick question, Member Snyder. Item number 4 eliminates hearing panel procedure. Where in the text is that?
Yeah, let me try to find that. I did the bulk of these revisions in November and then looked at them again a month. Yeah, it's been almost a month now, and I reviewed these quickly last night. But it's been a while since I did these, so forgive me. But give me a moment to find that set. I think it shows up in several areas, but let me try to find it. Find them. Yeah, okay. I think the first mention of this panel procedure is on packet page 11. It's section 5A1. The commission may hold the hearing, or the commission may assign one of its members. No, wait a minute. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, that's right. I think that's right. Commission may assign one of its members or a hearing officer to hold the hearing and submit a report and recommendation to the commission. If the commission holds a hearing, the commission may assign an outside hearing officer as a presiding officer of the hearing, as set forth in section 6E3. Which I also deleted, or suggest deleting. And I replaced all of that with just saying there's to be a hearing, it's to be public. Complainant, respondent shall have a right to appear. Well, you can see that the edits I made. I just don't. I couldn't for the life of me figure out the necessity of providing all of that. If the commission wants to create that kind of an entirely new level of bureaucracy, it can go ahead and do that. In my view, the thing that is most important for us to suggest to them is, look, just make it streamlined. Hear it yourself if you want. If you don't, you being the commission. If the commission doesn't want to hear it themselves in a full public meeting, they can do something else. But I don't see the benefit in sort of suggesting that as an alternative course. Similarly, there was a stipulated orders procedure, which is section 7, was section 7. This is packet page 18. And this section allows the executive director to negotiate with a respondent to sort of informally resolve any of the sunshine complaints and then come up with a stipulated order saying we agree that you're going to do this or not. And as I read this section, it just allows for the executive director to completely skirt the public process and sort of come to a so-called gentleman's agreement with the respondent about how to resolve the problem. It just smacks of kind of backroom dealing to me, and I don't, again, with the idea that, with the goal of providing the simplest and most streamlined regulations possible, I just don't see the benefit in providing this as as a possibility explicitly in the regulations. And so I deleted it. And frankly, I can't remember whether Alan, I don't remember what Mr. Grossman's views on this Section 7 were. I don't remember what his draft had on this. I don't think the stipulated order was something that Mr. Grossman added, but I could be wrong about that. Yeah, in my view, the most important thing is of all of this is packet page 9, section 4A. This is the section that provided in the Ethics Commission's or the Executive Director's version of these regulations, provided that the investigation shall be conducted in a confidential manner pursuant to San Francisco Charter, Appendix C, Section C3.699. As I said before, what that sets up is that the default is confidentiality. The investigation, by default, shall be confidential. And I don't know what the motives of the executive director or whomever put this together was, but I suspect what they were doing is just sort of copying or cutting and pasting from other procedures that the Ethics Commission, other investigations that the Ethics Commission undertakes. And there are good reasons that other types of investigations should be confidential. There's not good, can't think of any, nobody's presented to me any good explanation for why their investigation into a sunshine complaint should be confidential. It just seems sort of facially preposterous to do that. And I don't impute any bad motives onto the drafter of this. I think they were just following the typical procedure for the Ethics Commission. And I think we need to point out to them that that just seems silly to have a secret investigation of a sunshine complaint. And B, there's no reason to have that explicitly in your regulations. All we need to say is that the investigation, and this is the additions that I've proposed, the investigation shall be conducted in accordance with the Sunshine Ordinance and shall not conflict with the California Public Records Act, period, essentially. Meaning, it needs to be open under state and city law, like full stop, no problem. And in my view, that's the most important thing, because what these regulations set up was a secret procedure for looking at open procedure violations. It's just like, it's like the word Kafkaesque is overused, but that applies here, I think. So that, in brief, is a summary of what I've done. The outline of the changes that I did on packet page 4 could be, without too much effort, turned into kind of a letter to the Ethics Commission saying, here's what we did and here's our objective, here's what we'd like to do. Here are the reasons for the changes or the edits that we've made to your proposed regulations. Here's what we think is important. We'd love to meet and discuss. I don't know what the status of the potential discussions are. But my point is that I or anyone, I think, could turn this into a letter without too much effort. There had been some discussion, I think, about Member Wolf doing that, but I may be mistaken. So I guess what we need, what I would love to do is I'd love to hear what Mr. Grossman thinks about what I did to his work. I'm sure he'd have some complaints, and he may have some good reasons that some of the changes I made shouldn't be made. But I don't think that's essential to go to the next step and present something to the Ethics Commission. I think it'd be desirable to hear his input.
Okay, Member Nee.
First of all, a big thank you and a tip of the cap to Member Snyder. This is obviously this required a lot of work on his part, and he did so with all apparent diligence and a great deal of effort, and so I think we owe him our thanks for that. There are some things that I wanted to bring up. First of all, on page 8 of our packet, page 2, section H, I'm wondering if we should, on the second line where it says for non-compliance with an order of determination, I'm wondering if we should insert the word willful in there before non-compliance. That would be my suggestion. In section L, same page, you have violation or violated 3 times in a row there on the first line. I would cross out the second violation. Willful violation means a case where an individual intentionally violated, etc. Also, I would insert on the second line, after it says Sunshine Ordinance, I would insert the Brown Act and or the California Public Records Act.
So you'd have violated the Sunshine Ordinance, comma, the Brown Act, comma, or the California Public Records Act?
The Brown Act and or
And
the California Public Records Act. And the same